A poem by Emily Dickinson. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. And sweetness in the gale is heard, and sore must be the storm that could abash the little bird that kept so many warm. I've heard it in the chillest land and on the strangest sea, yet never in extremity it asked a crumb of me. In the musical An American in Paris, when the character Adam, a Jewish composer living in Paris immediately after World War II, finally finds the key to his musical expression, the central theme is hope. He realizes that creating art that is as dark as the times they were living in wasn't what he or his audience wanted or needed to hear. They all yearned for joy, a break from the reality of the world filled with hatred, danger, and war. And they needed his music to give them the strength to find hope. So I don't know about all of you, but I feel like I've been struggling a bit with hope. There's so much suffering between personal, political, and ecological pain. And I know many of us are finding ourselves suffering from a sense of defeat. We're kind of giving up. And sometimes we can't seem to find that glow of hope within. An article in the Huffington Post described exactly this state many of us are in. And after reading it, I started wondering if we might all be suffering from a condition I had not heard of before called compassion fatigue. If you haven't heard of it, it's empathy burnout as a result of being exposed to excessively negative events. It can manifest itself with symptoms of exhaustion, detachment, emotional disconnectedness from crises, and a sense of helplessness. If we think about it, it's almost impossible that most of us aren't suffering from some form of compassion fatigue. Recall all of those subjects that we screamed about Rosh Hashanah morning as we did our shofar calls. Global warming, homelessness, wildfires, droughts, political calamity, ongoing COVID crisis, Supreme Court decisions, war and shooting after shooting. We end up exhausted from all of the negative stimuli, frozen, unable to figure out which way to turn. And we have all of these burdens before we even begin to deal with our own personal tragedies. Caring for the sick, worrying about our finances, missing out on the simple joys we had pre-pandemic, saying goodbye to the last time for those we love. We turn ourselves off because it's just too painful to be turned on. Experts say that in order to manage compassion fatigue, we need to limit our exposure to negative news. Not to the point of ignorance, but we must be aware of overdoing it with the news cycle, the 24-hour cable station, and the pinging of headlines on our phones and even our watches. We have to practice self-care to guide ourselves out of these slumps. April Baskin, a fierce Black Cherokee Jewish activist, is the founding director of Joyous Justice, an organization that educates and advocates with a focus on issues of equity, inclusion, and liberation. And notice the name of her organization. It isn't called The World is Falling Apart, So You Better Get Ready. And it isn't called If You Don't Do Something, You're a Heartless Jerk. The organization is focused on action intertwined with joy. And why? Because Ms. Baskin learned the hard way that without hope and joy, not only do the organizations trudging towards righteousness suffer, but all of those who are working for that brighter tomorrow suffer as well. She herself was overwhelmed, balancing her day job and her commitment to social justice, and in a state of exhaustion, had a seizure while on an airplane. That was her wake-up call, that she couldn't be everything to everyone, and that she just can't be everywhere she wants and feels she needs to be. She was gonna have to make some difficult choices. She had to find balance to survive. Now, I don't know if she technically had compassion fatigue, but she was certainly fatigued from her compassion. And so she changed the focus of her life's work. Joyous justice is all about changing the future by uplifting others and herself with a focus on hope and potential rather than anger and hatred. If we think about it, rebellions are always built on hope. We know it's true because Star Wars said so. In Rogue One, Jin tells Cassian this is so, and as we know, Star Wars never lies. But if we think about it, revolutions only take place because of hope for tomorrow. We still get weepy at the inspiring words of Abraham Lincoln or Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., or more recently, Obama's Yes We Can speech, or the artful rises and falls of Amanda Gorman's The Hill We Climb. They got their audiences up and moving because they presented hope. But hope isn't enough. An article from Open Global Rights entitled Revolutions Are Built on Hope. It tells us that this hope must be balanced with self-care, in fact, bound to self-care. It says, as social justice champions, collectivizing our struggles, including our self-care, exponentially ensures our survival and sustains our movements. This is especially crucial because of the potential to feel despair, stress, anger, burnout, trauma, and isolation. In other words, without hope and support, compassion fatigue is looming ahead. By the end of our Torah, Moses is a grumpy old man, definitely suffering from compassion fatigue, in my opinion. Reading his final speech to the Israelites, I wouldn't have blamed the people if they shut him up and told him that he was bumming them out too much to go into the land of Canaan. But in Jewish tradition, we always end with hope. The prophets, and even the book of Lamentations, though filled with doom and gloom, always end with the promise of another day. And even grumpy old Moses ends his life by taking words once sung to God in the story of the Exodus during the Song of the Sea and turns them toward the people in a declaration of hope. Micha mocha, who is like you? He asks the Israelite people. Who is like you, a nation saved by Adonai? Our oldest stories are telling us that no matter how dark the road ahead seems, we have to save room for hope. So hineni, here I am. We need to take care of ourselves and each other. Let's choose words of hope sometimes instead of yelling or accusing or writing in all caps. The intensity can take a person suffering from compassion fatigue and send them straight to bed in a state of exhausted despair. We have to conclude our emails, our missions, our speeches, even our lesson plans with hope. We have to find the light. We have to have enough clarity and calm to discover creative solutions by asking, what if? We have to find this narrow path to victory and focus on it, treading softly upon that route as carefully as we can until the shine of tomorrow gets brighter and brighter and we too can see the promised land. Sherman Wein, one of the founders of humanistic Judaism, wrote this poem. Hope is a choice, never found, never given, always taken. Some wait for hope to capture them. They act as the prisoners of despair. Others go searching for hope, and they find nothing but the reflection of their own anger. Hope is an act of will, affirming in the presence of evil that good things will happen, preferring in the face of failure self-esteem to pity. Optimists laugh, even in the dark. They know that hope is a lifestyle, not a guarantee. Hope is a lifestyle. So be the hope for yourself, your children, and your grandchildren, because rebellions are built on hope.